There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Tiberius Valen, and I once believed in the sanctity of human form. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The transformation burns in my memory like Promethean fire, searing away what little humanity remained. Even now, as I speak these words through vox grills that replaced my mouth centuries ago, I can still feel phantom echoes of my original flesh crying out in remembered agony. The taste of copper and sacramental wine lingers eternally on sensors that replaced my tongue, the last human sensation before they took everything. I remember staring at my reflection in polished ceramite, watching as servitors removed the final pieces of my mortal face. The Medici adepts spoke of honor and duty as they systematically dismantled what the Emperor himself had designed. Their augmetic eyes never blinked as they carved away my humanity piece by bloody piece. You believe you understand what creates an Adeptus Astartes, what forges a space marine from human clay. The Imperium feeds you glorified tales of noble warriors and honorable transformation. They show you the finished product, towering demigods in gleaming armor, never the broken bodies and discarded flesh left in the wake of our creation. The pain is not merely physical. It is the systematic destruction of everything you once were, replaced by something the Emperor required. The Schola Progenium teaches that we are the Emperor's finest, his angels of death. But I will tell you what we truly are. We are what remains when humanity is cut away like tumor tissue, when weakness is burned out with chemicals that would kill lesser men, when memories of mothers and fathers and childhood homes are purged to make room for tactical doctrines and combat protocols. We are what happens when the Imperium decides humanity itself is insufficient. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Tiberius Valerian, and I once believed in humanity's resilience. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The transformation broke me in ways no mortal mind was meant to endure. Even now, as I dictate these memories through the neural interface of my sarcophagus, I taste copper and promethium where once I tasted wine and bread. The bitter tang of sacred unguents fills what remains of my olfactory senses, a constant reminder of what I have become. Beneath the adamantium and ceramite that now forms my prison and salvation, fragments of the man I once was occasionally surface like corpses in a midnight river. I remember the pain. Emperor, save me. I remember every excruciating moment as they unmade me to forge something greater. The apothecaries spoke of honor and duty as they harvested my organs and replaced my bones. They whispered prayers to the Omnissiah as they grafted machine to flesh, metal to marrow. They called it ascension. We initiates called it nothing, for our screams had no words. The Imperium tells its citizens that space marines are angels, divine warriors crafted by the Emperor's own hand to defend humanity. The common folk believe we are chosen for greatness, that we willingly embrace our transformation into post-human defenders. They imagine glory and purpose. They know nothing of the 19 children who died screaming beside me during implantation. They know nothing of the nightmares that plague even the most steadfast battle brothers. Dreams where we claw at our own chests, trying to remove the second heart that beats within, desperate to return to what we once were. This is no tale of heroism. This is the truth of how the Imperium forges its finest warriors. Through methodical brutality that would make even the most hardened inquisitor blanch. I tell this not to dishonor my chapter or the Emperor's vision, but because the truth, no matter how grim, must be preserved. The administratum will never record these words in their histories. The ecclesiarchy would burn them as heresy. Yet someone must remember what it costs to become more than human, and what humanity we sacrifice upon that bloody altar. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Tiberius Galen, and I once believed in humanity's inherent dignity. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The transformation ripped through my body like molten promethium, dissolving what I was and reforging something else entirely. Even now, entombed within ceramite and adamantium, I remember the screams, my screams, echoing through the apothecarion chambers deep beneath the fortress monastery. I taste copper constantly, though my tongue was replaced centuries ago. The augmetic sensors that now serve as my mouth register the metallic tang as a phantom echo, a ghost of the human nervous system that once inhabited this shell. The apothecaries call it memory syndrome, the final desperate attempts of a human mind clinging to its past existence. They say it fades. Another lie they tell the initiates. The Imperium speaks of honor in becoming Astartes, the Emperor's angels of death, posthuman warriors engineered to defend humanity. What they don't speak of is the systematic destruction of everything that makes you human. Not just the physical pain, though Emperor knows that alone would break most men, but the methodical erasure of identity. The 19 implanted organs are merely the beginning. Each one requires your humanity as payment. I record this testimony as a warning, though it will never reach the archives. The chapter's librarians would destroy it as heresy. But perhaps, centuries from now, some battle brother will access this memory core and understand what we have lost. The transformation from human to space marine isn't evolution, it's extinction. A death more complete than any battlefield could deliver. Scene Q. Scene Q, extreme close-up of a dreadnought's vision slit. Red glow pulsing inside like a heartbeat as internal cooling systems hiss with escaping steam. Archer section. Setup, descent, duration sec, 600, content. My name is Tiberius Galen. Crimson Fist's venerable dreadnought, entombed beneath the Arx Tyrannus on Rin's world since the Orc Wah of Snagrod, M41.989. Before the sarcophagus, I fought at Bad Landing, watching my battle brothers fall to the green tide. The Arx Tyrannus was my home, but signs of corruption were already there. The persistent headaches, the blackouts, the moments when my enhanced body seemed to reject itself despite the apothecary's ministrations. I was born Tibor Galenis, a fisherman's son on the coastal settlements of Rin's world. The Crimson Fists came to our village in the winter of my 12th year. The sky turned dark with their thunderhawks, and the ground trembled beneath their ceramite boots. They came not as conquerors, but as harvesters. I still remember Apothecary Kelshin's face as he examined us. Clinical, detached, measuring our worth not as humans, but as raw material. This one, he said, pointing at me with a gauntleted finger, genetic compatibility is promising. My father received the traditional payment, a small chest of imperial currency and the honor of contributing to the chapter. I never saw him weep before that day. The first tests began immediately. They drew blood, tissue samples, mapped our neural patterns. Of the 27 boys taken that day, only 8 survived the initial compatibility screenings. The rest were given the Emperor's piece, a bolter round to the back of the head. Mercy, they called it. The chapter serfs burned the bodies while reciting the litany of gratitude for their sacrifice. I watched from the iron-barred windows of the apothecarion, wondering if death might have been kinder. We began as neophytes, still mostly human, though the hypno-indoctrination and chemical treatments had already begun reshaping our minds. Scout Sergeant Drago was our first master, a scarred veteran missing half his face from a dark Eldar splinter rifle. "You are no longer human," he would tell us during the night marches across Rin's world's northern wastes. "Humanity is weakness. You must shed it like a snake sheds its skin." We marched until our feet bled, then continued marching. We fought with combat knives until our hands were sliced to ribbons, then continued fighting. Those who faltered disappeared in the night. We never spoke of them again. The surgical procedures began in my 14th year. The first implant, the secondary heart, was inserted without anesthesia. "Pain is the forge of discipline," Apothecary Kelshin intoned as his servo arms cut through my chest cavity. I bit through my tongue rather than scream. The taste of blood filled my mouth as the secondary heart began its first beats, unnaturally strong, pushing hyperoxygenated blood through my veins. That night, I dreamt of birds bursting from my chest, their wings black and slick with my blood. Each organ came with its own agony. The osmodula turned my skeleton to adamantium, every bone breaking and reknitting in excruciating slow motion over months. The biscopea swelled my musculature until I felt my skin would split. The hemostamin altered my blood until it barely resembled the human fluid that once flowed through my veins. With each change, memories of my former life grew distant. I could no longer recall my mother's face or the smell of the sea breeze from my village. Tibor was dying by inches, and Tiberius was being built from his remains. The catalepsian node stole sleep itself. I would remain conscious for weeks, my mind splitting into parallel awareness. One part alert, the other dreaming in a waking nightmare. The Priomnor turned my digestive system into a filtration system capable of processing toxins that would kill a normal human. The omophagia, that was perhaps the most disturbing. The ability to absorb genetic memories from consumed flesh. Our first test was to eat the brain matter of a fallen battle brother, experiencing his final moments as our own. I tasted Brother Vex's death at the hands of Dark Eldar, felt the poisoned splinter rounds tearing through his organs, experienced his final prayer to the Emperor. His memories became mine, alien and invasive. The multi-lung oculobe Lyman's ear. Each one pushed me further from humanity. My vision shifted to include spectrums no human could perceive. I could hear the heartbeats of creatures kilometers away. I could breathe atmospheres toxic enough to dissolve unaugmented lungs. The Susan membrane allowed me to enter suspended animation, cheating death itself. The melanochrome darkened my skin to absorb radiation that would kill mortals. The owlitic kidney, neuroglottis, mucranoid, Becher's gland, 19 organs in total, each one a further step away from the species I was born into. The black carapace was the final transformation, the true mark of the Astartes. Psychoplastic grafted directly to my skeleton, fusing with my nervous system, creating the interface that would connect me to my power armor. No longer simply wearing it, becoming one with it. As the black material spread beneath my skin like a cancer, I felt the last traces of Tibor Galenis fade entirely. When I rose from the slab, I was Brother Tiberius of the Crimson Fists, initiate of the 8th Company. My first act as a full battle brother was to kneel before Chapter Master Cantor and recite the Catechism of Service. I am the Emperor's wrath. I am humanity's shield. I know no fear. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Tiberius Varin, and I once believed in humanity's resilience. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The transformation strips away everything you once were, leaving only a weapon in the shape of a man. I still remember the day they came for me, though the memory grows hazier with each passing century. The metallic taste of fear lingered in my mouth as the black-armored giants strode through the burning remnants of my settlement on Elysia. Their ceramite boots crushed the scorched skulls of those who had once been my neighbors, my friends, my family. I was 17 Terran Standard when the chapter's apothecaries judged me worthy. They did not ask my permission. They did not need to. In the eyes of the Imperium, I was merely raw material, gene stock to be harvested, shaped, and forged into something inhuman. The first incision came without anesthesia, a test of worthiness they claimed. I felt the cold edge of the narthecium slice through the skin of my chest, the warm rush of blood cascading down my sides. I did not scream. Those who screamed were discarded. I had seen what happened to the weak, their bodies tossed into mass graves or fed to the servitors. I would not join them. The apothecary leaned close, his breath reeking of antiseptic and something else. Something not quite human. "The pain you feel now is nothing," he whispered, his voice a mechanical rasp through his helmet's Vox grill. "It is merely the first step on the path to becoming something greater." His gauntleted hand reached into my open chest, fingers probing between my ribs. "Your heart beats strong, neophyte. Soon it will beat stronger still." I felt his fingers close around my heart, not to remove it, but to measure its worth. In that moment, I understood that I was no longer human. I was property of the Adeptus Astartes. I was clay to be molded into a weapon of the Emperor's will. None of the recruitment sermons speak of what comes after, the systematic destruction of the self. They speak of glory, of duty, of service to the God Emperor. They do not speak of the 19 organs implanted into your flesh, each one burning like a sun as it rewrites your very existence. They do not speak of the hypno-indoctrination that scours your mind of all that you once were, replacing memories of family with tactical doctrines and combat protocols. They do not speak of the moment when you realize that the face staring back at you from polished ceramite no longer holds any trace of the boy you once were. The transformation is not ascension. It is annihilation. And I have endured it for over 300 years. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Alaric Dorn, and I once believed in human potential. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The Imperium's greatest warriors are not born, but made, torn apart and rebuilt in ways that strip away humanity piece by piece. I know, because I endured it. I survived the transformation that kills 7 in 10 aspirants. I became what the Imperium needed, a transhuman killing machine wrapped in ceramite and righteous fury. The taste of recycled air through augmented lungs still haunts my memories. The apothecarium on Macraga was a temple of scientific brutality when I first entered it as a boy of 12 standard Terran years. Blood-red surgical lumens cast everything in crimson shadow, while servo skulls hovered silently, recording every measurement, every incision. The air carried the scent of antiseptic, incense, and beneath it all, fear. Not just mine, but the collective terror of generations of boys who had lain on these same slabs before me. I remember Brother Apothecary Varro's words as he prepared the first of 19 major surgical procedures that would transform me from human to Adeptus Astartes. The flesh is weak, but we shall make it strong. The mind is fragile, but we shall armor it in duty. The soul is corruptible, but we shall shield it in hatred of the enemy. His voice was soft, yet carried the weight of millennia, a sound no unmodified human could produce. His hands, massive in their surgical gauntlets, moved with impossible precision as he marked incision points on my chest. "The Emperor protects," he intoned, "but first he transforms," the philosophical question that haunts me now as I lie entombed in my dreadnought sarcophagus. Was anything of the original boy preserved? Or was he murdered on that surgical slab, replaced by something that merely carries his memories? The Codex Astartes teaches us that we ascend to a higher purpose. But what if we simply become something else entirely? Something less human, but more durable. Something that can stare into the void of the galaxy's horrors without breaking. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Titus Valerian, and I once believed in humanity's inherent dignity. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The transformation has taken everything from me except memory, and even that fades with each passing cycle. The taste of iron floods my mouth. Not blood, but the neural interface fluids that now sustain what remains of my organic components. I remember screaming once. Now I can only emit binary war cant through vox grills that were never meant to form human sounds. The apothecaries speak of honor when they harvest aspirants from feudal worlds. They whisper promises of glory to farm boys and hive gangers alike. Serve the Emperor, they say, and know immortality. What they don't tell you is that immortality comes at the cost of everything that makes you human. The pain begins with the first implant and never truly ends. It merely transforms into something your altered brain processes differently. I still feel pain, even entombed in this sarcophagus of ceramite and adamantium. I feel it when the tech priests perform their rituals, anointing my prison with sacred oils while muttering binaric prayers to the Omnissiah. The Imperium needs its angels of death, its transhuman warriors to stand against the darkness that threatens to consume mankind. But understand this truth. Space Marines are not men made greater. They are men unmade and rebuilt as weapons. The flesh is weak, so they replace it. The mind is limited, so they rewire it. The soul harbors doubt, so they crush it beneath layers of hypno-indoctrination and chemical conditioning. What emerges is something post-human. Something that remembers being a boy once, running through wheat fields or ducking through hive corridors, but cannot truly connect with that memory. It becomes merely data, stored alongside tactical doctrines and weapons specifications. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Tiberius Varro, and I once believed in humanity. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The cold steel of the Medicae chamber still haunts my memories, though most of what I was has been stripped away, replaced by augmetics and conditioning that have transformed me into something beyond human. The taste of iron floods my mouth even now, an echo of that first surgery when they replaced my secondary heart. They call it ascension. We who have endured it know better. It is death by degrees. The Imperium needs its angels of death, its transhuman warriors who stand between humanity and the horrors of the void. What the Imperium's propaganda preachers never tell you is the cost. The screams of initiates echo through the fortress monasteries, where mere children are broken down and rebuilt into weapons. I remember my own voice, hoarse from screaming during the implantation of the os modula, as it restructured my skeleton into something denser, stronger, inhuman. My bones cracked and reformed for weeks, each moment an agony beyond description. The apothecaries spoke of honor while they mutilated us. Faith sustained some of my battle brothers. I had only pain. 90% of aspirants die during transformation. The Imperium calls this acceptable losses. I watched my fellow initiates reject implants, their bodies dissolving into pools of corrupted flesh as gene seed turned against them. Brother Marius liquefied from within, his organs failing as the Laramen's organ implantation went catastrophically wrong. The memory of his face, contorted in agony as blood vessels burst beneath his skin, still visits me in what little sleep I am permitted. We were told to forget him. That weakness must be purged. But some horrors cannot be forgotten, even after centuries encased in the sarcophagus of a dreadnought. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Alaric Voss, and I once believed in the sanctity of human form. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The transformation strips away more than flesh. It devours your humanity, one augmentation at a time. Even now, as my consciousness drifts between the cold embrace of my sarcophagus and the burning memories of what I once was, I question if anything of the boy from Macraga's southern hemisphere remains. The smell of incense and machine oil mingles in my olfactory receptors, a poor substitute for the salt breeze of my childhood home. The chirurgeons promised glory, promised immortality in service to the God Emperor. They never spoke of the pain. They never mentioned how the screams would echo in your skull long after your original vocal cords had been replaced with augmetic sound processors. They never told us that we would remember every cut, every drill, every replacement, even as they assured us the procedures would be painless. I remember the first time I saw a space marine. I was 12 years old, standing among the crowd as the ultramarines marched through our settlement after repelling a minor orc incursion. Their ceramite armor gleamed cobalt blue in the sunlight, their movements fluid despite their massive frames. How could beings so large move with such grace? How could warriors so deadly appear so noble? I did not understand then that beneath that armor were men who had been hollowed out and rebuilt. Men who had sacrificed their humanity upon the altar of duty. The chapter's apothecaries had marked me that day, testing my blood as they passed through the crowd. I was compatible. I was suitable. I was doomed. Scene Q. Scene Q. Flickering green status lights illuminate a Space Marine dreadnought sarcophagus from within, casting eerie shadows across ancient battle honors etched into its surface. Enquête. Section. Setup spur descent. Duration Drsec. 600. Content. My name is Alaric Voss, Ultramarines 4th Company, Battle Brother. Entombed beneath the fortress of Hera on Macrag since the Corinthian Crusade, M41.698. Before the sarcophagus, I fought at Ispandor and Quintarn. The fortress of Hera was my home. But signs of corruption were already there. My body rejecting the final implantations, my mind fracturing under the strain of too many neural interfaces. I remember the day they came for me in the Scola. I was 13, gangly and awkward like all boys that age. The chaplain towered over us, his skull-faced helm reflecting the terror in our eyes. He spoke of duty and sacrifice, of the honor of being chosen to serve the Emperor as one of his angels of death. I believed him. Emperor, forgive me. I believed every word. 5 of us were taken that day. Only I survived the trials. The others? Their names are recorded somewhere in the chapter's archives, their bodies burned in the furnaces beneath the fortress. Failed aspirants, deemed unworthy. In my darkest moments, I envy them their clean deaths. The transformation began with the os modula and biscopea implants. I remember the burning agony as my skeleton began to grow, as my muscles swelled beyond natural human limits. For 3 years, I endured the surgeries. 19 gene seed organs implanted one by one. The secondary heart that pounds in my chest even now. The multi-lung that allowed me to breathe toxic atmospheres. The Laramens organ that caused my blood to clot almost instantly. The black carapace that fused with my skin, allowing me to interface directly with my power armor. Each implantation was accompanied by hypno-indoctrination, chemical treatments, and ceaseless training. The pain was constant, but we were taught to embrace it, to transform it into hatred for the Emperor's enemies. Brother Tullian was the first to notice my episodes. We were sparring in the practice cages, chainswords whirring as we circled each other. I had him on the defensive when the seizure struck, a violent spasm that sent me crashing to the floor, foam flecking my lips. I awoke in the Apothecarion, Apothecary Memnon's grim face hovering above me. Gene seed rejection, he muttered to his servitor. Partial, manageable for now. He did not realize I could hear him, or perhaps he did not care. I was returned to active duty within a week, prescribed additional chemical treatments and prayer sessions with the chaplains. The chapter needed every battle brother it could field. The enemies of mankind would not wait for my body to accept its enhancements. The Corinthian Crusade was to be my final campaign as a whole man. We made planetfall on Quintarn, bolters blazing as we pushed back the Orc invasion. I remember the green tide breaking against our lines, the smell of promethium and burnt Xenos flesh. I remember Brother Castor falling, an Orc Choppa buried in his chest despite his ceramite plate. I remember dragging him back to our lines, even as my own armor registered damage to my primary systems. The Orc bullet had penetrated at the joint between my breastplate and shoulder guard, tearing through the enhanced muscle beneath. But it was not the wound that doomed me. It was my body's reaction to it. The seizure struck as I reached our defensive position. My brothers tell me I killed 3 greenskins before I collapsed. I have no memory of it. I awoke in the Apothecarion aboard the strike cruiser Gorgon's Wrath. The ship's chief apothecary, Drusus, stood over me alongside Techmarine Varion. Their expressions told me everything I needed to know. The gene seed rejection has progressed, Drusus said, his voice devoid of emotion. Your nervous system is degrading. Combat functionality is compromised. I asked what would become of me, though I already knew the answer. There are only 2 fates for Space Marines who can no longer serve in battle: service in the chapter's Reclusiam or entombment within a dreadnought sarcophagus. Given the nature of my condition, only one option remained. You will continue to serve, Techmarine Varian said, placing a cold metal hand on my shoulder. The chapter has need of your experience, your tactical acumen, your fury. What he did not say was that I would serve as a walking tomb, a weapon piloted by what remained of my consciousness. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Tiberius Valerius, once a mortal man of flesh and blood, and I once believed in humanity's inherent dignity. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The transformation burns in my memory like a brand upon my soul. The systematic dismantling of everything that made me human. The metallic taste of fear lingered on my tongue that first night in the Apothecarion, as white-robed figures moved silently around me, their faces hidden behind skull-shaped masks, their eyes cold and calculating. The scent of antiseptic couldn't mask the underlying copper tang of blood, my blood, as they began their work. The screams that echoed through those sterile chambers were my own, though I scarcely recognized them. 19 standard Terran years of age, I had been a promising candidate, strong of body and will. The chaplains spoke of honor and duty, of service to the God Emperor and mankind. They never spoke of pain. They never mentioned how they would hollow you out like a vessel and pour something else inside. Something inhuman. The sound of bone saws still haunts my dreams. The mechanical whir cutting through marrow and memory alike. I remember watching pieces of myself being carried away in metal trays, discarded like waste material, no longer necessary for my new purpose. The apothecaries worked with the precision of artisans and the detachment of executioners. "This one shows promise," they would say, as if I were not present, as if I were already an object rather than a man. I felt each new organ as it was implanted, alien and wrong, yet slowly becoming part of me. The secondary heart beating alongside my own, the os modula hardening my bones to ceramic density, the biscopea swelling my muscles beyond natural human limits. Each new addition pushed me further from humanity, a grotesque metamorphosis sanctified by 10,000 years of tradition. The Imperium calls it ascension. I call it death by degrees. In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, there is no greater honor than to be selected for transformation into one of the Emperor's angels of death. So they told me. So I believed. But as I lay upon that slab, feeling my humanity being excised one organ at a time, I understood the true horror of what it means to become transhuman. The Space Marines are not men. They are weapons, forged in agony, baptized in blood, and consecrated to eternal war. This is my testimony, my confession, my warning. This is the brutal truth of how mortal flesh is transmuted into posthuman legend, and the terrible price paid for such transformation. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Terran Valaris, and I once believed in humanity's inherent worth. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The metallic taste of recycled air fills what remains of my biological lungs as I drift between consciousness and the void of machine sleep. The sarcophagus that houses my mutilated form hums with ancient technology beyond mortal comprehension. I remember flesh, soft, vulnerable, weak. I remember fear. I remember pain. But these are distant echoes now, memories belonging to someone else, someone who died screaming on the surgical slab of the apothecarion. The transformation from human to Astartes is not a blessing. It is not an honor. It is systematic annihilation. They tell the recruits they will become angels of death, warriors of legend. They speak of glory and the Emperor's light. They lie. What they don't tell you is how they methodically strip away everything that makes you human. Your fears, your hopes, your capacity for mercy, your ability to question. The Imperium doesn't need heroes. It needs weapons. And that is what we become. I still recall fragments of my mortal life on the feral world of Gathis II. The smell of wood smoke from my village, my mother's face, now blurred by centuries and genetic manipulation. I remember the day the chaplains came, their skull-faced helmets reflecting the flames as they put my tribe to the test. I was 12 Terran standard years when they took me. I was proud then, honored to be chosen. The elders spoke of becoming a god among men. If only they could see what remains of me now. A broken consciousness trapped in a prison of ceramite and adamantium, forced to fight for an Imperium that sees me as nothing more than a gene-forged instrument of war. The truth of Space Marine creation is not found in the propaganda of the ecclesiarchy or the sanitized accounts of imperial scholars. It lies in the screams that echo through the apothecarion, in the failed aspirants whose bodies reject the implants and die in agony, in the ones who survive physically but lose their minds to the hypno-indoctrination. We are not born. We are manufactured, piece by agonizing piece. And what emerges is no longer human. Something less, yet paradoxically more. Something that looks upon normal humans with a mixture of contempt and forgotten longing. The transformation breaks us completely before rebuilding us into something the Emperor can use. This is my testimony, sealed within the memory banks of my dreadnought frame. The brutal truth of how men become monsters in service to a rotting Imperium. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Tiberius Valerius, and I once believed in humanity's innate resilience. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The transformation burns in my memory like Promethean fire, searing away what I once was. Even now, as my consciousness drifts between the cold embrace of my sarcophagus and moments of horrifying clarity, I remember the day they came for me. I still recall the taste of real food, the warmth of sunlight on bare skin, the simple pleasure of drawing breath without the mechanical wheeze of augmetic lungs. These memories fade with each passing century, replaced by the constant hum of machinery that keeps what remains of my organic form functioning. The servo motors whine as they pump nutrients into what little flesh I have left. The metallic tang of recycled air fills my enhanced olfactory sensors, a poor substitute for the scent of rain-soaked earth I once knew. The Imperium calls it ascension, a great honor bestowed upon the finest warriors humanity has to offer. They speak of duty, of sacrifice, of becoming something greater. The chaplains recite litanies of transformation, calling it the Emperor's blessing. But they never speak of what is lost. They never tell the aspirants that they will become strangers to themselves, that they will look upon their own reflection and see only a weapon forged in pain and blood. The truth of space marine creation is not glorious. It is monstrous. And yet, in the grim darkness of the far future, monstrosity is humanity's only shield against extinction. I have watched generations of young men walk willingly into the apothecarion, their eyes bright with purpose, unaware that the person who walks out will bear only the faintest resemblance to who they once were. I have witnessed their screams as organs are implanted without anesthesia, as bones are broken and reformed, as their minds are scrubbed of weakness and doubt. And I have seen those who fail the transformation, their bodies rejecting the implants, their minds shattering under the weight of hypno-indoctrination. The fortunate ones die quickly. The rest become servitors, mindless husks performing menial tasks until their bodies finally give out. This is the brutal truth of creating the Emperor's finest warriors. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Tiberius Valen, and I once believed in the sanctity of human flesh. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The transformation broke me in ways I cannot describe with this vox grill that now serves as my mouth. Even now, entombed within my dreadnought sarcophagus, I feel the phantom pain of surgeries performed centuries ago, the bite of monomolecular scalpels, the burning agony of implanted organs, the screams that tore from my throat as my body rejected what the apothecaries forced upon it. I remember the day they selected me from the feral tribes of Fenris. A boy of 12, fierce but still human, still innocent. The wolf priests spoke of glory, of serving the Allfather, of becoming something greater. They never spoke of the pain. They never mentioned that 9 in 10 aspirants die screaming, their bodies rejecting the sacred implants, or their minds shattering under the hypno-conditioning. The truth of space marine creation is not a tale of heroism. It is a chronicle of systematic mutilation disguised as ascension. The metallic taste of blood has never left me. not in 3,000 years of service. Even now, as my biological components slowly fail within this armored coffin, I taste it, the copper reminder of my lost humanity. The Imperium needs its angels of death, its transhuman warriors. But the cost... Emperor, forgive us for what we do to children in your name. The screams of the aspirants still echo in the halls of the Fang. I hear them in my dreams, when the stasis generators cycle and allow what remains of my consciousness to drift. The truth of our creation is the Imperium's darkest necessity, and I will tell you everything. Scene Q. Scene Q. Extreme close-up of ancient, scarred space marine face transitioning into the metallic faceplate of a dreadnought. Single tear of oil leaking from eye lens. Section. Setup, descent, duration sec, 600, content. My name is Tiberius Valen, Space Wolf Venerable Dreadnought, entombed beneath the Fang on Fenris since the burning of Prospero, M31.734. Before the sarcophagus, I fought at Nicaea, at Prospero, at 100 worlds whose names are now forgotten to all but the oldest of our kind. The Fang was my home. But signs of corruption were already there. The way my hands would shake after each transformation, the way my twin hearts would sometimes beat out of sync, the blackouts that grew longer with each passing year. I was born beneath the auroras of Fenris, in a small tribal settlement called Hellfrost. My father was a hunter who taught me to track ice worms across the frozen tundra. My mother was a skald who sang the sagas of our ancestors. I killed my first Fenrisian wolf at 9. By 12, I had led war parties against rival tribes. That was when the Sky Warriors came, when Ulvid Icefang, wolf priest of the rout, saw potential in me. "This one has the spark," he said to his brothers. "This one will survive the change." They took me that night, along with 7 other boys. I was the only one who lived to see the next full moon. The trials began immediately. They starved us, beat us, forced us to fight each other. 3 boys died in those initial tests. Then came the first surgeries. The secondary heart was implanted while I was fully conscious. No anesthetic. They needed to see if I could endure the pain. I remember Wolf Priest Ulvid standing over me, his narthexium dripping with my blood. "Pain is the forge that shapes you, neophyte," he said as I screamed. "Embrace it." The osmodula came next, altering my skeleton. I grew 20 centimeters in a month. My bones broke and reknit themselves daily. Another boy died when his ribcage exploded outward, puncturing his lungs. The apothecaries simply noted the failure and moved on. The Biscopeia transformed my musculature, doubling my strength but causing seizures that left me paralyzed for days. The Hemastamin changed my blood, turning it thick and dark. When they implanted the Laramens organ, my body rejected it twice before it took hold. Each rejection brought me to the edge of death. Each time, the wolf priests dragged me back, not out of mercy, but because they had invested too much in my transformation to let me die. The catalepsian node was worst of all. It rewired my brain, allowing me to sleep one hemisphere at a time. For weeks after its implantation, I experienced waking nightmares, unable to distinguish reality from hallucination. The preomner, omophagia, multi-lung, oculobe, Lyman's ear, Susan membrane, melanochrome, oolitic kidney, neuroglottis, mucranoid, Becher's gland, progenoids, the black carapace. 19 implants in total, each one pushing the boundaries of what human flesh can endure. Jarl Heimdall oversaw my final trials personally. I remember standing before him, no longer the boy from Hellfrost, but not yet a true son of Russ. "You stand at the threshold, Bloodclaw," he said, his voice like grinding stone. Your body is remade, but your mind must follow. The helix has changed your flesh, but only battle will change your soul. He sent me with a pack of other initiates to hunt a kraken that had surfaced near the coast. 3 more died that day. I returned carrying their gene seed and the kraken's eye. Only then did they grant me my power armor. Only then did they call me brother. But I was no longer human. The faces of my tribe were fading memories. I could not recall my mother's songs or my father's lessons. The chapter had become my family, the fang my only home. Yet even then, I sensed something wrong within me. The implants had taken, but at a cost I was only beginning to understand. My first century as a blood claw was a blur of violence. The Great Crusade was reaching its zenith, and the rout was the Emperor's executioner. We brought compliance to 100 worlds. I killed without question, without remorse. The hypno-indoctrination had done its work well. I believed in the imperial truth with the fervor of the converted. When we received word that the 1,000 Sons had transgressed against the Emperor's edict, I howled for their blood along with my brothers. The Council of Nicaea should have been a warning. I stood guard as our father censured Magnus the Red for his sorcery. I saw the pain in the Crimson King's eye, but I felt nothing. My capacity for empathy had been excised along with my humanity. The burning of Prospero. The memory still haunts me. We descended upon the City of Light like a storm, butchering civilians and warriors alike. I remember 1,000 Sons legionary begging for his life, not for himself, but for the children he protected. I executed him without hesitation, but I spared the children. That small mercy cost me. A psychic blast caught me as I turned away, burning through my armor and into my flesh. The wound would not heal. Warp energy had corrupted it. For months I lingered between life and death as the apothecaries fought to save me. When I finally awoke, everything had changed. Horus had betrayed the Emperor. The galaxy was burning, and my body was failing. The implants that had made me transhuman now slowly killing me as the warp taint spread. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Arik Valeris, and I once believed in the sanctity of human flesh. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The cold metal beneath my skin reminds me daily of what I surrendered in service to the God Emperor. The augmetic implants pulse with a life that is not truly life. Foreign rhythms that have replaced the beating of a human heart. I remember screaming until my throat bled raw, the surgical implements of the apothecaries glinting under harsh lumens as they carved away what made me human. The taste of recycled air filters through my enhanced respiratory system, a metallic tang that has replaced the memory of fresh wind or the sweetness of fruit. My enhanced vision dissects the world into tactical overlays and targeting matrices, beauty reduced to strategic value. I have not dreamt in decades. The nightmares, however, never cease. Memories of transformation that haunt the few remaining human cells in this transhuman shell. The Imperium calls us heroes, angels of death. But we are abominations crafted through science so dark it borders on heresy, preserved only by necessity. The Schola Progenium told us we were chosen, special, blessed to serve the Emperor as his finest warriors. They never mentioned how they would hollow us out, organ by organ, memory by memory, until nothing remained of the boy who once gazed at the stars with wonder instead of calculating orbital bombardment trajectories. 912 surgical procedures, 19 implanted organs, hypno-indoctrination so thorough that the faces of my birth parents are nothing but shadows. This is the truth they hide from the masses, that the Emperor's finest warriors are built upon the broken bodies of children. Scene Q. Scene Q. Extreme close-up of a surgical needle-piercing human flesh, pulling back to reveal a young face contorted in agony under harsh medical lighting. Bars. Section. Setup descent. Duration sec. 600. Content. My name is Arik Valeris, Ultramarines Chapter, Battle Brother of the 4th Company, entombed beneath the fortress of Hera on Macragge since the Tyrannic War, M41.745. Before the sarcophagus, I fought at Ishar IV, where the chitinous hordes of Hive Fleet Kraken descended upon Imperial worlds like a living tide of hunger. The fortress of Hera was my home, its blue-white marble halls echoing with 10,000 years of tradition and glory. But signs of corruption were already there. The tremors in my hand that I concealed from my battle brothers, the whispers of the apothecaries when they thought I could not hear them through the enhanced auditory canals they themselves had implanted. He was born on Parmenio, an agri-world in the Ultramar subsector. The Ultramarines recruitment tithe came when I had seen but 9 summers. I was working my father's fields when the Thunderhawks descended from the heavens, kicking up dust that stung my eyes as the power-armored giants emerged. They tested 500 children that day. Only 3 were taken. I remember my mother's face as they led me away, pride and grief warring across her features. She believed the Imperial propaganda, that her son would become a hero, a defender of humanity. She did not know she was surrendering me to systematic mutilation. The last human touch I ever felt was her hand upon my cheek, warm and soft against my skin. After that, there was only the cold precision of surgical tools and the unyielding grip of power-armored hands. The fortress of Hera swallowed me whole. Its ancient halls became the crucible of my transformation. First came the testing, endless, brutal physical trials designed to kill any who lacked the genetic potential to receive the sacred gene seed. 3 of my initial intake group died during the first month. We were not permitted to mourn them. Weakness purged, our trainer said. The Emperor accepts only the strongest. We slept in cells carved from stone, ate nutrient paste calibrated to prepare our bodies for the changes to come, and trained until our muscles tore and bones cracked. Pain became our constant companion, our only teacher. When I close my eyes, I can still hear the screams echoing through the training halls, my own among them. The first implantation came at age 10, the secondary heart, the first of many gifts from Guilliman's gene line. The apothecary, Brother Decimus, spoke the ritual words as he administered the sedative. With this sacred organ, you begin your journey to becoming transhuman. Cherish the pain, neophyte, for it is the fire that forges your mortal flesh into something greater. I remember the burning sensation spreading through my chest as the secondary heart began to beat alongside my own. That night, fever dreams plagued me, visions of twin suns pulsing in rhythm, of my ribcage splitting open to reveal something mechanical nestled among wet organs. I awoke drenched in sweat, my chest throbbing with dual heartbeats that sounded wrong to my human ears. My body was already becoming a stranger to me. The os modula and biscopia followed, reshaping my skeleton and musculature. My bones ached constantly as they grew denser, thicker. I gained 30 centimeters in height within a year, my frame stretching painfully to accommodate the changes. My skin split along my spine, along my limbs, unable to contain the rapidly growing form beneath. The apothecaries applied unguents and sutured the worst tears, but scars accumulated across my body like a map of my transformation. Other neophytes broke under the strain, their minds or bodies rejecting the changes. Those whose bodies failed were given the Emperor's peace. Those whose minds broke were sent to serve in the chapter's serfs, or, in the worst cases, handed over to the chaplains for final rites. I learned to lock away my pain, to dissociate from the body that was being systematically dismantled and rebuilt. By 14, the hemastamin and Laraman's organ had been implanted, altering my blood chemistry. Cuts healed almost instantly, sealing themselves with scabs hard as ceramite. During combat training, Brother Sergeant Tauron sliced my arm open with a practice blade to demonstrate the effect to the surviving neophytes. "Observe how the transhuman body repairs itself," he said clinically as my blood clotted in seconds, forming a rigid seal over the wound. "The weakness of human flesh is overcome through the Emperor's science." I watched my blood behave in ways no human blood should, feeling a strange detachment. Was this still my body? Or was I becoming merely a passenger within a vessel crafted for war? The catalepsy node came next, changing my relationship with consciousness itself. Sleep became optional, a luxury rather than a necessity. I could remain combat effective for days without rest, portions of my brain shutting down in controlled micro-sleeps while the rest remained alert. The training intensified. Endless drills, weapons practice, tactical simulations that continued for days without pause. Those of us who survived were no longer fully human, our biological rhythms altered beyond recognition. I found myself staring at the ceiling during the few hours allocated for full sleep, unable to remember what true rest felt like. My mind constantly processing tactical data even as my body lay motionless on the stone slab that served as my bed. The preomnor, omophagia, and multi-lung transformed my relationship with the physical world. Poisons became ineffective against my new digestive system. I could extract genetic memories from flesh I consumed, a practice that revolted what remained of my human sensibilities. The first time the chaplains made us participate in the ritual consumption of fallen enemies, I vomited black bile for hours afterward as alien memories flooded my consciousness. The chaplain watched impassively, noting my reaction in his data slate. "The human revulsion will pass," he said. "The knowledge gained is worth the temporary discomfort." He was right. By the 5th ritual consumption, I felt nothing but clinical interest in the memories I absorbed. The human disgust burned away by conditioning and biochemical changes. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Tarius Valerian, and I once believed in humanity's resilience. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The transformation strips away everything you are, layer by layer, until nothing remains but a weapon forged in agony. I remember the taste of real food, the warmth of sunlight on skin that could still feel, the sound of laughter that wasn't filtered through augmetic audio receptors. These memories fade with each passing century. The pain never truly leaves you. It becomes a constant companion, like the low hum of power armor systems or the rhythmic beat of your enhanced twin hearts. When the apothecaries began their work on me, I was 16 Terran years of age, a child by any measure, but old enough to understand what I was sacrificing. What I couldn't comprehend was how completely the process would hollow me out, scraping away my humanity like flesh from bone, replacing it with something colder, harder, and utterly inhuman. I can still recall the moment before the first implantation. The apothecary's face loomed over mine, his features already transhuman and distant, eyes calculating as he prepared the secondary heart that would begin my transformation. "The pain is necessary," he told me, voice devoid of compassion. It is through suffering that weakness is purged. I believed him then. The Imperium needs its angels of death, its transhuman warriors to hold back the endless night. But they never speak of what we lose in becoming those angels. The initiates are never told the full truth. How could they comprehend it? The recruitment propaganda speaks of glory, of becoming something greater than human. It never mentions how the process breaks you so completely that the pieces can never be reassembled into anything resembling what you once were. The flesh can be remade, enhanced, strengthened. But the spirit? The soul? These things are not so easily preserved when every cell in your body is rewritten, when your very DNA is reshaped by technologies barely understood, even by those who implement them. This is the brutal truth of becoming Astartes. It is not transformation, but annihilation. There are fates worse than death, and I have lived them all. My name was Tiberius Valerius, and I once believed in humanity's strength. I was wrong. The truth is far darker. The transformation took everything from me. My flesh, my memories, my soul. What remains is something other. A weapon wrapped in ceramite and hatred, fueled by the dying embers of a forgotten life. The process began in the blood-soaked mud of Cadia's northern wastes. I remember the skies burning as chaos warships tore through the atmosphere, the ground trembling beneath waves of cultists. The stench of promethium and charred flesh filled my nostrils as I fought alongside my PDF regiment. We were losing, badly. The metallic taste of fear coated my tongue as I watched my brothers in arms fall one by one, their screams echoing across the wasteland. I had accepted my death when they came for me. They moved like gods among mortals, giants in midnight blue armor, bearing the insignia of the Ultramarines. Bolter fire erupted around me, each shell detonating with the force of a grenade, tearing cultists apart in explosions of crimson mist. I watched transfixed, as one of them, a warrior twice my size, cut down a Chaos Space Marine with 3 precise swings of a humming power sword. The Marine turned to me, his face hidden behind a stern ceramite helm, and spoke words that would seal my fate. You fight well for one untouched by the Emperor's gift. Perhaps you are worthy. I did not understand then what worthiness would cost me. The apothecary's narthecium slid beneath my skin with mechanical precision, extracting genetic material, testing compatibility. I remember his words, cold and clinical. Subject shows promising markers. Genetic deviation within acceptable parameters. They spoke of me as a thing, not a man. My first lesson in what I was becoming. Had I known the 19 organs they would implant within me, the pain that awaited, the humanity I would sacrifice upon the altar of duty, would I have chosen differently? Such questions are meaningless now. In the Imperium of man, choice is the first casualty of service.